Welcome, I'm David Matlin. Now, at a time when questions of identity, memory, and global Jewish connection are more relevant than ever, we're bringing together two voices, shaping that conversation from different perspectives. Now, joining us from Israel is Meir. He's the CEO of Masa. It's an organization at the forefront of connecting young Jews from around the world to meaningful experiences here in Israel, a variety of them. And with us from the UK today is Dov Forman. He's Masa alumni and a prominent young advocate now for Holocaust remembrance and Jewish identity, whose work is helping ensure that the stories of the past continue to resonate with new generations. Critically important. Now, together, they represent both the institutional and the personal dimensions of this mission, from large-scale global programs to deeply individual storytelling and impact. So, Meir and Dov, thank you both for being with us. I know our viewers will get a lot out of this. Meir, I have to start with you, of course. Running the organization at this point, how has Masa's mission evolved in recent years? Clearly, we're in an unusual time, perhaps unprecedented, especially with all the growing challenges globally. Talk a bit about the shifting dynamics between Israel and the diaspora and what you guys are doing about it.
So thank you, David. Pleasure to be here. Listen, Masa's been around for over 20 years, founded by the Jewish Agency and the government of Israel. We already have over 220,000 alumni who are really shaping the world in very different ways. The past few years have been turbulent, to say the least, for all of us. Going through a global pandemic, wars, Russia and Ukraine, and obviously October 7th in the last two rounds in Iran. We're seeing young Jews showing up in very special ways. We see them coming during these really difficult times and really understanding that they need to show up. This generation is such a special generation of young adults that are really showing up in ways that like no other generation before. They're there, they're active, they're learning, they're interested, and they are here for us.
I mean, I think you say it right. Nobody's coming here right now just on a whim or because they're kind of interested. People are on a mission. They really have something coming from their heart if they're coming here at this time, especially young people. And Dov, this brings me to you here. You took part in a Masa program. Look, hearing Meir speak about this mission, about building the strong leadership. Describe the impact that the experience had on you personally, of course, your own personal growth and the path that you've taken since. I know you're in a powerful role now, we could say. Tell us about it.
I grew up here in London. I participated in a Masa program, a Masa Religious Jewish Studies program in 2022, so just before October 7th. And it really helped me shape my Jewish identity, learn more about history. Most people across the country here in the UK, but even across the world, will never meet a Jewish person. Wow. And of course, I spend a lot of my time focusing on the Holocaust. They will never meet a Holocaust survivor, but they will never even meet a Jew. And so I do think it's our responsibility as young Jews to learn more about our history, to learn more about our only Jewish country in the world, and to be able to defend it, and to be able to teach people what being Jewish really means. So in my case, that meant going on a Masa program, spending the year in Israel, and now using social media to educate over my over 2 million followers on social media about what it really means to be a Jew, about the true story, about what really happened in the Holocaust, but what really happened throughout Jewish history and what's happening now. And I think you can only do that if you spend time and if you learn, and you can do that through programs like Masa. And that's what I spent my time doing in 2022 for a year in Israel.
Well said, Dov. I think you hit a lot of this at the core here, and hearing that from Dov, Meir, obviously tell us more about, from your perspective, how the experience is truly transformative. I mean, beyond just the content of the program itself. Tell us about a bit more of what he's describing.
So I think Dov's absolutely right. And it's not only about the content, as you said, and it's not only about the time, the length of time, which also has a very meaningful thing. I think the biggest thing in the core is they're actually living here like locals. They're getting involved within the Israeli society. They're getting the opportunity to live like Israelis, to meet Jews from other programs like Haban Masa from around the world, a real opportunity to have a completely different perspective that they would have from anywhere else in the world, no matter where they're coming from. And I think that is something that brings it more than anything else. They also have opportunity here for leadership skills, building leadership skills. We don't create leaders, but we give them the tools to do more and to do better of what they're able to do. And that is something that is very special. They have the opportunity here that when they spend the time here to learn who they are. For many of them, this is the first experience that they have alone as young adults, away from home, away from parents, away from what they grew up with, and have the opportunity to find out who they really are And we try to give them those tools, give them the opportunities to grow as human beings, to grow as leaders, to become people like Dov and so many others.
I mean, this is arguably the most formative chapter of life. This young bit, whether coming 18 or in the early 20s, and Dov again. Look, how do you see young Jews? We're talking about this age group here, and this incredible exposure to reality that you get coming on the Masa program, which Meir highlights beyond the the itinerary. You're here, you get exposed. Now, I believe reality sells in Israel. So give us an idea of how you see the young Jews now, your generation, engaging with their identity, given all the big challenges, particularly, the climate around it today.
Well, quite. Look, young Jews have been thrust over the past few years, whether that's on university campus, in their high schools, across the world, into a situation that no one wants to be in, where we are ultimately fighting for our identity. We're fighting to correct the lies that are spread about us, not just in person, but also overwhelmingly online. And we need to show up. Young Jews, I don't think, have ever been in the situation that we are now, where on their social media feeds, they're being attacked every single day. On campuses, in person, they're being attacked every single day. I mean, I wake up this morning in the United Kingdom to news that another synagogue had an attempted firebombing last night. I mean, that's 4 in the past 3 weeks. We had the Hatzalah ambulances, of course, and then a series of attacks over the past few weeks. And look, this is getting worse, but young Jews are stepping up to it. They are going on programs like Masa to explore their leadership capabilities and abilities, and to continue to try and learn more so that they can stand up and they can meet this moment. And ultimately, we Jews are linked in unbreakable chains, in an unbreakable chain of generations that came before us that went through this exact same hatred. And also, some met the occasion and some didn't. And ultimately, the question is, do we want to be known in history to our grandchildren, to our great-grandchildren going forward? Do we want to be known as the Jews who stepped up or not? And that's up to us, and it's a question that we need to decide. But in my eyes, I see more and more young Jews wanting to step up, wanting to use their platforms and voices, whether that's someone with 10 followers, 100 followers, 2 million followers like myself. We all start with 0, and it's up to us to decide whether we want to use those for the positive, because we know that no one else is going to stand up and speak up for us.
I mean, the authenticity of your voice, Dov, this is powerful. I know you didn't hand him a script to read here. This is he's telling it how it is, and this is, I think, an experience echoed by so many. Look, I get you, Meir, to dive into these last 3 years. Some more of your thoughts being such a challenge. How has Masa Israel, embraced that in terms of how do you see it affecting the younger generation now? Is this kind of a fork in the road? This moment, either they're getting on board or not. I mean, what's this? How are you looking?
Listen, I mean, in some ways it might be early to say, how this is going to affect everything. Jewish Federations of North America had a survey talking about the surge and the purge. How we're seeing, Jewish people looking to get closer to Israel and others who are unfortunately pushing away. But I think, during these past almost 3 years with the wars happening here, I think one of the most important things for us is that Masa doesn't stop. We adapt. We have never stopped our programs, not after October 7th, not Operation Rising Lion and not Roaring Lion and whatever other lions may come. We are very much trying to find the ways, making sure, first of all, that their safety and security are taken care of, but also trying to find ways to make sure that this time here is meaningful. The amount of hours of volunteering that our participants looked just in this operation alone, this last operation alone, is staggering. Thousands and thousands of hours of volunteering, just trying to find a way not to see how I can stay safe, but how can I be helpful to others in this time. And I think one of the most amazing things to me was we have a call center with all calls coming in from parents, from participants, and from future participants. And we expected those calls to be primarily about how do we get out of here? All right, how do we find a flight to get out? And what are you doing for our safety? The number one question was, when does registration open for next year? Which is really, really amazing. And I'm happy to also say that last week we opened registration for the upcoming Tafshin Pei Zayin, the
next year's
year starting in September 1st. And we opened it now 4 months earlier than we did last year. The earliest we've opened in almost a decade, because we see this and we already see people signing up. We've opened only days ago. People are signing up. People want to be here.
Highly encouraging. Dov, I want to get your input again, or tell us more about, I know you've taken on another role since you came back from this program. Certainly inspired by, or tell us how your experience in Masa propelled you into your role preserving the stories of the Holocaust survivors.
When I was 16 during COVID, I began interviewing my great-grandmother, hearing about her testimony, learning more. She was an Auschwitz survivor. She had spent decades of her life going out to educate. And then throughout COVID and also throughout my year in Israel, I began realizing that we need to do more to preserve these stories, more to share them, and more so that they could reach millions, hundreds of millions of people. And I began posting online. That started on Twitter and then on TikTok. And I quickly saw that people were thirsty for this knowledge, knew very little, especially Americans, about the Holocaust. People would ask naive questions like, why did you choose Auschwitz? Why didn't you choose another camp? They weren't being anti-Semitic, they simply didn't know. And so I continued to post, and now over 1 billion people have watched my great-grandmother's testimony and other Holocaust survivors online through my platforms. Over 2 million followers on TikTok, hundreds of thousands on other platforms. And look, I did something because I saw that there was a space for Holocaust education online, but that doesn't mean that other Jews need to now start educating about the Holocaust. People can use their voice in whatever way they feel fit. That can be on campus, speaking to one person, or it could be speaking to millions of people online. But ultimately, I think during Corona, we saw a perfect example of how you can have impact on people, whether that was on one person. When you had COVID, you spread it to one, who spread it to another, and before you knew it, over 1 million people could see your testimony. Could catch COVID from you. And I always say this example, the same is with education. All you need is to educate one person. My great-grandmother used to say that people used to ask her in school, what would be a success for Holocaust education with you? And of course, there was the macro scale, but there's also the micro scale, just impacting one person, changing their mind. And I think that that's how Jews today should look. If you can impact one person on your school, on your university campus or online, that should be a success, because they might go and educate another and say, no, I know the Holocaust happened because Dov Forman told me about what happened to his great-grandmother in the Holocaust. And we need more people to take on that mission.
Look, I want to throw one last question to both of you. We'll start with Meir here. Looking ahead, what does meaningful Jewish engagement look like for the next generation? In other words, where do you see the biggest opportunities, the biggest challenges?
So, I'm going to build off what Dov just said now about that one person making a difference and really exponentially growing it. There isn't one way in which we're going to educate. We have, at some years, almost 300 different programs. Not because we don't want people to be together, but because different people are looking for different ways to connect. Different people need different ways to connect, and they also need the different avenues to really express that connection. We're looking at, you talked to me about the institutional versus Dov, the personal. We're all about the personal. We need to be using this institution, as you called it, to make sure that we connect individually to as many people as possible, so that each and every one of them can really move that and send that message forward. Some of them will become great leaders, just like Dov did. Some of them will become more active in their communities. Some of them will just at least know more and have that ability to defend themselves if, unfortunately, they have anti-Semitic slur thrown at them. But it's really about, first of all, growing their identity, making sure that they feel more connected to their Judaism, to Israel, finding those different ways, be it in person or online, to really express themselves.
You've got it right. Listen, Dov, you want anything to add to that here about where the opportunities are, where the challenges are at this moment?
Well, look, I think that was spot on. We all know the challenges. We know the situation that Jews across the world find themselves in. And we know that we need to continue to learn, we need to continue to speak up. And as I said before, no one else is going to do this before us, but we should take hope and strength from the people that came before us, that they too have been through much worse in the time of the pogroms and the time of the Holocaust throughout Europe. And they came through it too. And look what they built. They built a generation of strong, proud Jews who can rise to this moment. But it's up to us to do that. It's up to us to use our voice, our platforms, in whatever way people might feel fit to do so. And whether that's going on programs like Masa, whether that's listening to news channels like Ynet, however you might get the information that you need to fight and speak back, because we know, as I keep saying, no one's going to do this for us. It's our responsibility. And ultimately, people love to complain, but the question is always, what are you going to do about it? And we need to rise to meet this moment.
I'm uplifted after speaking to you both. I'm sure our viewers will get a lot from this as well. Thank you, Meir Holtz, Dov Forman. Thank you both for joining us, for sharing your perspectives on such an important conversation. Thank you all out there for joining.